From coast to coast and right here over the airwaves, you're listening to WPSL Talk. Covering WPSL Pro, this is the place for real conversations, engaging interviews and personal perspectives on the topics that matter. Joining you is your host, Barbara J.
Hello and welcome to WPSL Talk. I am your host, Barbara J. Today on the show, Vince Singletary, the fitness major, will be joining us to talk about what players need to do before the season begins. He'll talk fitness, nutrition, and injury prevention. But first, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about myself and how I started in podcasting. So back in 2005, I attended the Sacramento Monarchs women's basketball game where I first learned about the Sacramento Sirens women's tackle football team. In 2006, I ran a blog called Sacktown News, and that focused on flag football, the National Golf League, and the Sacramento Sirens. In 2006 and 2007, for 2 seasons, I played for the Sacramento Sirens, and during that time, I had been contemplating starting a podcast on women's tackle football for all the teams in the 3 leagues at the time. In 2007, I started a podcast called WFB Talk, which stood for Women's Football Talk, with 3 other co-hosts. The podcast also had coaches shows and game broadcasts, and that ran through 2013. In 2008, I started an extension show called WFB Talk Continues, and this was for additional game broadcasts, so the 2 could run simultaneously on each of the podcast shows, as well as I transferred the coaches shows over. In 2010 through 2011, I started a sixes football team, which used only 6 players versus the normal 11. In 2011, I changed the name from WFB Talk Continues to the Independent Sports Network for all the game broadcasts, which happen weekly, and moved the coaches shows back to WFB Talk. In 2012, I won the Porter Wilson Award with the International Women's Flag Football Association for contributions in women's flag football and women's tackle football through podcasting. In 2017, I decided to come back to podcasting with JC Hawk Sports Network /radio and did another show on women's tackle football, as well as did coaches shows, and this ran through 2023. In 2019, I was inducted in the Women's Football Hall of Fame for media honor, not for playing football, but for media honor for the contributions in women's tackle football. And now in 2026, I started WPSL Talk, which covers WPSL Pro. So now let's talk about why I wanted to start a podcast on WPSL Pro. So last year, I found out about the WPSL through games on YouTube. I read about the WPSL more in depth through the website as well as their Facebook page, and I then found out about WPSL Pro. I had learned that the WPSL Pro was going to launch first in 2026, and then it was changed to 2027. So as I started with the women's football podcast, I wanted to do the same with women's soccer and grow as they grew. Through broadcast, I want to support as well as educate the listener, and I want to do my part in supporting and promoting women's sports, and in this case, women's soccer. Okay, now let's dive into who are the people behind WPSL Pro. You have Ann Hogue. She's the founding CEO of WPSL Pro. Sean Jones, he's the co-founder of WPSL Pro, and he's also the current president of the WPSL. Benno Nagel is co-founder as well as project director of WPSL Pro. Gina Prodon Kelly is the founding leader of WPSL Pro. And Megan Oglesby is an investor and also a board member of WPSL Pro. As far as the league, I did pose some questions to one of the league heads, and I asked them this. I said, how much does it cost a team to be in the league? What are the team stadium requirements? What are the benefits to be a part of this league? What are the qualifications for a team to be able to join the league? Will the players receive a salary with the teams as part of the league? Is the league still considering giving players equity in the league? What would that entail? Are there any sponsors, and what are the costs of becoming a sponsor? Will the games be televised, and what network or networks? How many games in the season will there be, and will the inaugural season have an abbreviated schedule or a full schedule since the starting year is 2027? And she wrote me back and said, I think it would be better to get across some of these milestones internally and then check back to give you the full, complete, and final answers to these questions. But what I can tell you is that there are currently 16 teams in the league, and per the league, they're looking to get 16 to 20 teams in their first inaugural season. The teams are Sioux Falls City Football Club, Oklahoma City Football Club, Northern Colorado Rain Football Club, Dakota Fusion Football Club, Georgia Impact Soccer, Cleveland Pro Soccer, AC Houston Sur, Austin Rise Football Club, Indios, Denver Football Club, the Town City Football Club, Soda City Football Club, South Star Football Club, Football Club Wichita, Real Central, New Jersey. There's a new Connecticut team, and WPSL SoCal. The states that are represented by these 16 teams are South Dakota, Oklahoma, Colorado, North Dakota, Georgia, Ohio, Texas, California, South Carolina, Kansas, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Next show, we're probably going to talk more in depth with the teams of WPSL Pro. I reached out to a couple of teams, and I'm hoping they'll get back to me. But if there's any other teams out there that would like to be on the show to talk more about your team, email me at barbaraJ@WPSLtalk.com. Now we're going to interview with Vince Singletary, the fitness major. Back in 2022, Vince did a show with me on sports-specific training. Then he did another show with 3 different segments, one on fitness, one on nutrition, and one on injury prevention. Today, we're going to cover all 3, fitness, nutrition, and injury prevention. Here's the interview. Joining me today is Vince Singletary, the fitness major. Vince will talk to us about fitness, injury prevention, and nutrition for soccer. Welcome to the show, Vince.
Hey, happy to be here.
I'm glad to talk to you again. It's been a while.
It has.
Well, before we begin, I'm sure the audience would like to know a little bit about yourself as well as why you chose this path.
Oh, yeah. So a little bit about me. I am the owner and of Fitness Major, which is my company. Been a fitness professional for almost 20 years, since 2008. It is a passion. It's a lifestyle for me. I love being healthy, and I want to inspire others to be healthy as well. So my mission is to create a pathways for people to have successful journeys in their health and fitness journey. And my motto is change begins with you.
Mm-hmm. And then you decided because it was your passion. That's why you chose this path.
Well, yeah, and yes, and just understanding that health is so important. It is one of the true keys to wealth and happiness. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have that, it's hard to enjoy the other things that most anybody, it doesn't matter what it is you like to do, it's hard to enjoy that because you can't move or you're having to take all these medications. So it is, and so many of these, so many preventative measures can be taken to stop some chronic diseases by just exercising, nutrition, eating making healthy choices, and just being active.
Mm-hmm. So before we dive into the players' questions, let's get started. And I'm going to ask you a few of questions that I have to ask. So in regard to fitness, so what specific exercises to increase acceleration, speed, and agility on the field?
Oh, that's always a good one. People always want to be faster, stronger, and jump higher. I mean, anything that you want to increase, you have to train for it. So you have to find specific things that simulate, especially when it comes to any of these sports are athlete related. It has to simulate that. Mm-hmm. So if you are trying to say be a faster sprinter, you don't want to you're not going to just walk on a treadmill, or you're not going to just do upper body workouts. You need to train in that specific region. Of course, strength training is a component to that, but you want to train in that specific realm. And if you can, train with resistance. One of the easiest, simplest things to get, and it's fairly cost effective, and is getting resistance bands, because resistance bands, for the most part, will cause your body to have a sort of resistance, which you actually have the ability to manipulate depending on the thickness of the band and how you move wherever you place the bands. And it's going to help you to work on what we call fast twitch muscles, because everyone has some fast twitch and some slow twitch muscles. And it's those fast twitch muscles that help you get to that next step of acceleration and that immediate burst. So a lot of the intricate muscles. Also, you want to focus on building things up that will require you to have better stability, because we all have imbalances. Like one leg may be more stronger than the other. One arm may be stronger than the other. One leg or one side of your body may be more agile. And you want to try to close the gap between both sides of your body to create that full balance, because burst requires both sides of the body, and in a lot of cases, upper and lower parts of your body, to effectively create that.
Now, you and I, before the show, we were talking about endurance, and a few players I know want to know, how do they improve their endurance, to last the full 90 minutes of the game?
Yeah. I mean, soccer. I remember I trained one athlete. He was like 18, and he's from, he's from somewhere from the Middle East, but he was brought out here to play soccer. And again, one of the main things that his issue was the unilateral movements. He wasn't as agile as he needed to be. So if you're not as agile, or if you don't have that balance on both sides of your body, that is one way of creating fatigue. And then we know, when you play soccer, you are working in all planes of motion, and you are having to pivot and adjust and switch directions on the dime. And that can be taxing too. So building that stamina up. Again, there's a couple ways you can do it. By one, creating a balance in your body, both sides of your body, upper and lower part. Working on those smaller, intricate muscles around your joints, around your ankles, your knees, your hips, but also training for longer periods of time. So training so it's it's 90 minutes or 30 minutes. Doing trainings simulated for that amount of time. Now, of course, you're not always running the whole entire time. I mean, you are running most of it. So building up, say, 5 minutes of constantly movement patterns, running or either sprinting, running across the field, and doing agility work for say 5 minutes at a time. Take a 1 minute break and repeat, and do that for 20 to 30 minutes at a time, or as long as you can, without compromising your health or your safety. And then as you continue to do that, you progress and build up. Another way is to do it in the form of adding resistance. So say training with a weight vest. So if you train heavier than you are, once you take that weight vest off, you're going to be much lighter, and you're going to have a lot more energy because you're not carrying that weight. Just like a person that is 50 pounds overweight, they lose that 50 pounds. Now they feel like a whole different person because they're much lighter. They're able to move a lot more for a lot longer. So things like that to simulate basically what we call an overload the body, so that when you get into real-time activities and real game, you are able to do it effortlessly, at least not effortlessly, but at least in the sense where you are able to keep your stamina and your strength up throughout the duration.
In regard to overtraining, they've asked what exercises should be avoided that you're not overtraining.
which exercises should you not train?
Yeah, it should be avoided to ensure they're not overtraining, like doing too much.
And it really does boil down to the individual. But a lot of techniques you want to focus on is, again, soccer is probably one of the most functional training programs. I mean, as far as sports there is, because I simulate it, but it's even more so to basketball, because basketball, you're playing offense and defense and you are constantly going up and down the court. Well, a soccer field's 3-4 times that. Plus, so it's a lot more running, but you're doing a lot of the same back pedals, you're doing lateral movements, you're pivoting. So you want to do things that simulate that. So just sitting down doing, say, isolated workouts like isometric machines, you don't really want to do a lot of those because those aren't functional. Don't get me wrong, you can fit them in, but if I was to train a soccer athlete, maybe in the off season we would do more of those type of movements. I basically what I mean, like say like a seated leg press or a leg curl. But when we are training, say during season or during sport, I want to do more functional work. I want to do more lunges. All planes of motion, front, back, lateral lunges, deadlifts, things that combine strength and endurance, because that is a total combination of strength and endurance, soccer. And you don't want to put on much weight because, again, that's going to make you slow. So you're not doing like max out training. You're doing more of strength endurance training with weight that's going to challenge you, but not going to have you super sore, because if you're sore, your movement is going to be stagnant and delayed, especially during season.
Okay, I'm going to go to some of the players' questions. You probably answered this, but they're asking if they should still use weights during the competitive season. And you can actually answer the non-competitive season, because you're not going to work out the same way, are you, with both on and off season?
Typically, no. Like you said, you can add some other components when you're in off season. It's just like it's just similar to like most sports. Off season, yes, that's a chance for you to build more strength. Again, you're not trying to put on a lot of muscle. I mean, you put on some lean muscle, but you're not trying to build like put on weight typically, because one of your biggest weapons is your ability to be agile and swift. It's not necessarily be fast. We talked about that earlier, but you want to be swift because you need to quickly move from one position to another. You need to quickly build range. Now, of course, yeah, if you fast can help, but you also have to have coordination because you're kicking the ball. Especially if you have the ball, you're kicking the ball, so you're constantly having to. So running fast doesn't necessarily equate to being able to be as good as going down up and down the field kicking the ball. Now for defense, yeah, that's fine. You can get back faster, but you want to be more swift. So again, those fast twitch muscles are your prime examples. So even in the off season, you still want to focus on that, because you never want to totally stop that, but you can do more things that may not be as functional in the off season, and that maybe you can do more weight, like heavier weight, or more volume loading when it comes to how much weight you use. But during the season, two of the main things is to be, safe and not have any injuries, so injury prevention, but you also don't want to be sore. So that's when you're going to do more of a minimal weight. That's why I say something like resistance bands are phenomenal, because you don't typically have as much of the soreness as you would with, say, weight training. Even aqua exercises, doing exercises in the pool. People laugh at those. I see people that think, I think this is for old people too, but no, because a pool will really be good for someone that says play soccer, pool exercise, because no matter what plane of motion, as long as you get at least, say, belly deep into the pool, any plane of motion you move, you go forward, you go backwards, you go lateral, any plane of movement, the water is always there. There's always going to be a resistance, which can build strength and build stamina up in your muscles as well as prevent you from having that soreness or sore for as long, so you can recover in time for your next game.
Okay, so how about injury prevention and care in that? Now, the ACL is the most common injury in soccer as well, isn't it?
I would say ACL and ankles
And ankles as
and
well,
shoulders.
and shoulders.
Particularly say if you're like a goalie, because you see, goalies are always jumping trying to stop the ball, and they might land on the shoulder wrong. But most common ones are like ankles, knees. Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's what I've noticed.
Okay, I have this down. Let's see. So, exercises. How do you strengthen those knees and ankles to prevent the common injuries like ACL and sprains and everything?
Yeah, kind of what I mentioned earlier too.
Mm-hmm.
You want to work on your muscles that surround and support your joints and your tendons. So I'm working on the muscles around your knees, around your ankles, around your hips, because you're turning your hips a lot, and even your shoulders, because you're twisting and you're turning. Your body can. I mean, when you are in a uncontrolled environment, which playing a sport, there is a level of uncontrol in a sense of you have to react. It's not scripted. Whereas, say, if you're doing a leg press, or you're doing a squat, you know what the squat machine does. You go up, you go down, you have this level of control, and you do it at whatever cadence or whatever time that you do it in. When it comes to a sport, you don't know where the ball is going to go. You don't know what the player on the opposite side is going to do. You are always reacting, and you need those muscles, especially the ones again around the knees, around the ankles, the hips, to be able to, one, respond fast, those fast twitch muscles, but you want them to be flexible and have enough strength in them to make those movements repeatedly. So unilateral training, I can't emphasize that enough. Working on one side, say doing lunges, split squats, doing single leg exercises. So each side does have to control its own work and movement. Doing stability training, doing things on a dyno disc, on a Bosu ball, on a stability ball, because you also on those things you are always working with. No matter how good you get at it, and some people make it look real easy, but no matter how good your muscles are always having to fire. They never get a chance to rest when you're standing on a Bosu ball, either side of the Bosu ball. Or in a dyno disc, it's like a frisbee disc that's blown up. You are not your muscles, particularly around your joints, are never in a place where they can be totally relaxed. Because as soon as they do, your muscle will shift that way. Then your body has to respond to it. Those are great ways to prevent injury, as well as stretching. So, say for instance, if you have muscles that are sore, like me, like I know I have a couple areas in my body where I know are sore or tired or stiff more times than most times than not. So doing static stretching for those muscles, say before training or before a game, to loosen those muscles up are really important, so that you don't start your game or start your training with stiffness. But for athletes, especially too, you want to combine that with an active or dynamic stretches. What I mean by that is that you are static stretches when you're just like, say you're doing, say, child's pose, or you're downward dog for those that are yogis, where you are holding yourself in a position for a period of time to make that muscle stretch for a period of time. Dynamic or active stretching is kind of like what it says, like you are doing it in active motion, like you see people say when they're training, they do like going across, say, a mini field, or going across the field, high knees, butt kicks, jumping jacks, things like that are more active, dynamic stretching. And those are good because they're preparing your body and your joints for what it is that you're about to start doing. So warming those joints and those tendons up can help prevent any injuries.
One of the questions that was asked also, previous injuries, how would they go about addressing this? Are they being more gentle with the exercises? Are they going slow? How would they deal with the previous injuries?
Uh, there's a whole lot of factors that go into that. So I break it down, but just let everyone know, for everyone to know, it is a case by case basis. Based on it can be gender specific. It can be what injured, what parts were injured, your age, your injury history. There's a lot of things that go into that. But one of the main things I always say, whether it's a post injury, no injuries, listen to your body. Your body will tell you. Hence, this morning I wanted to go to the gym a couple hours before I actually went to the gym. My body was like, no, you need to rest. So listening to your body is one of the best ways to, one, prevent an injury and or recover fully from an injury. But let's say in this case where you are injured, you want to just, most people, if you have, especially athletes, if they have sports injury, they go through a rehab process and physical therapy. So always get the professional guidance for that. So physical therapists, especially sports athlete coaches, they know specifically some exercises, some techniques that you use to practice recovery. So follow those for sure, and then mix in, depends on the injury. So let's say it is a knee, for instance, that's one of the most common ones. So you want to do some unilateral work. Things like bands are so important for those reasons. Thorough bands, resistance bands, because you have the ability to adapt the tension, and then if you're doing it unilaterally, each side has to do its own work. So one side can't cheat. Whereas if you're doing, I'd say again, a leg press, a 2-leg leg press, one side can take over and the other side gets fatigued. But you don't want that, especially if you're recovering from an injury, and particularly for sports like soccer, because again, all the planes of motion, and you're having to lean on one foot, then next second you'd be leaning on the other leg and foot. So you want to create that unilateral balance overall, and making sure that you don't lose the flexibility and mobility in that area where you was injured, because that's where a lot of people fall off, is they don't follow the rehab process, or they don't follow the post-training process, and they don't focus on that flexibility, that mobility. And if you lose some of that mobility, particularly in the lower body, since you're constantly running as a soccer player, anything from hips down, that is a second delay. And that second delay can make a difference between someone getting by you, between someone kicking a goal, between somebody taking the ball from you. So focusing on building that base, but also understanding that if it is an injury, that you don't try to just go back in full strength all top. Start slow, build up to it, and your body will tell you when it's time to step it up a little more, or take it up to the next level.
So another question that another player asked about constant hamstring tightness.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do in that case?
Most of the time, hamstring tightness is due to lack of flexibility. So, and especially, I'd say, we know that some athletes, especially depending on what level you are, if you're a pro, that's pretty much your life. But if you're anything other than that, some people have 9-to-5 jobs, and so some people are sitting down a lot. So making sure that you keep the flexibility, the stretching in that area is key. Building your level of strength, but if you're having, say, hamstring strains or tightness, a lot of times it's not strength related, because when you strength train for your hamstrings, you are contracting the muscles. But when the muscles are tight, because they're already kind of locked in a contracted position. So elongating the muscles like stretching is key to relieving yourself of that, eliminating that. Also, it goes back to our childhood. It never hit me really because you're like a kid. Well, one, we don't care if we're kids, but for two, that we wasn't thinking about anatomy. But your muscles are tied together. So, if say you feel like you could be having some tight hamstrings, you want to check your whole posterior chain. You want to check your lower back, your erectors. Is your lower back having some lower back tightness? That can lead to tight hamstrings. Are you having some stiffness in your glutes or your butt? That can lead to tight hamstrings. Your calf muscles. If your calf muscles are tight, like I said, we talk about ankles and knees, but also Achilles tendon is like another common injury. If you have a torn Achilles tendon or even just have a tight Achilles tendon, that can lead to tight hamstrings. If your hip flexors are tight, that can lead to lower back stiffness, tightness, which, well, again, we already said they have a interconnect with your hamstrings, which can turn around and lead to some tight hamstrings. So checking all those boxes are really important to making sure that you don't have or tight, say, hamstrings or stiff hamstrings, but also making sure your nutrition is on point, particularly like say your hydration levels and your electrolytes, like your vitamins and minerals, because if you are sodium deficient or if you don't have enough of the vitamins and minerals that you need, or if you're not drinking enough fluids, your body can create a sort of stiffness or tightness because you're basically your muscles are dried out. So it's just like having, say, a rubber band that's old and brittle that's been set in the sun. And the electricity is not going to be there as if it was when you first bought it.
Well, here is the old age question: ice or heat for recovery?
There's so many studies, and some things. There's so many contradictions on some studies as well, as most people as you probably know and other people know. It all depends on what are you recovering. Are you recovering from stiffness? Are you coming from tightness? Are you recovering from injury? Are you having swelling? Simple way to do it: if you are tight and stiff, heat. If you have aches and pains, or if you have swelling, ice. I mean, don't be wrong, you can still use heat with those as well, but ice is going to help bring down some of the swelling. It's going to help some of the muscles to recover. But heat is going to help you also, just like, wintertime, when you get up and your body's cold in your house, what do? You turn the heat on. Why are you turning the heat on? So your body can warm up and loosen up. So same principle applies when it comes to heat or ice methods when it comes to your body. If you are stiff and tight, and heat will probably be the best option for you, heat that area up. If it is sore, if there's some inflammation, some swelling, then ice would probably be the better choice of the two. But also, if you're unsure, try a little bit of both and see, and pay attention to how your body responds to it.
Now let's move on to nutrition. So it says here, what should their nutrition plan look like to maximize energy and recovery?
Yes. Nutrition. Because you are an endurance athlete, you're constantly working in what is called the anaerobic phase. I mean, the aerobic phase, not anaerobic. So say this is an anaerobic phase is someone like a power lifter, where you're just requiring a hard output for a short period of time, typically like 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds. Whereas aerobic phase is a soccer player, a triathlete, a CrossFitter, people like that. They're required to do things for a long time. It's not a short, quick burst. So carbohydrates are important to that, making sure you get enough carbs. Typically a breakdown would be carbs would be about 50 to 60% of your total intake if you break down your food pie. And then you want to mix in because your body needs to recover. So think of this. So your energy, your fuel, your energy is carbohydrates. That's the fuel that you put in your tank. So you need to have, so you put about 50 to 60% of that in carbs. You need the building blocks of the body. So you think of the repairs and maintenance of your body. That is your protein. So about 25 to 30% of that being protein. But also cellular regeneration is important too. So that's what the fats are. Fats help with cellular regeneration. So mixing in about 15 to 20 grams of fat. So basically you want to be more carb loading because your body is requiring a lot of energy, because carbs break down into glucose, which breaks down into simple sugars, which breaks down into energy. So you want to have that more of your base of it. But then for the recovery phase, that's why protein is the second highest, because it is the building block of the body for your muscles to repair, your bones, your joints to stay strong and to get what they need. And then the fats help with, well, not just on the physical side, but also the mental side, because your brain needs a lot of fat in order. And obviously, when you are in a sport where you're constantly having to read and react, it's a lot of thinking. People don't think about that component of it, but you're constantly having to think because, how does your body react? Your body only reacts to what your brain sense, what your eyes see, which registers sensors to your brain to make your body make that next connected move. So that's how I would break down for a soccer player or endurance athlete, but in this case, a soccer player, as far as their macronutrients breakdown, plus mixing in your vitamins, your minerals to help, one, break down some of those macronutrients, and also to make sure you keep hydrated and prevent cramps and things like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, somebody actually mentioned about carbs. They were wanting to know how many carbs to eat before a game. Now, I know you've covered carbs and proteins. What about before a game? How many carbs should they eat?
I would mix in a high carbohydrate, moderate protein, low fat meal before a game. Now, when you eat that is a personal thing as well, because some people can eat 1 hour before a game and be perfectly fine. Some people can eat 3 hours before a game and will get sick. So a lot of this does go down to individually knowing how your body responds. Now, there are some carbs, say in this case, carbohydrates, and even the other components, the other macronutrients as well. There are some that are heavier or better than others in a sense. So you want low fiber meals because fiber, trying to make it a simple thought, fiber is really good for you. One thing that fiber does is it slows down, like I mentioned a minute ago, how carbohydrates, how they break down. They break down to simple sugars, which provides you with fuel and energy to run for the 90 minutes in a meet, right? So if you are having a high fiber rich meal, it's going to slow down the breakdown of that process, and it's going to seep, and it's just like an hourglass. It will seep energy, which is good in most cases, but in the term of before a contest, especially something like soccer, it's not good because you need that energy release. You need that simple fuel. So some things that you can have, say bananas, potatoes, white rice, things like that will break. They're not as heavy and they'll break down quicker because if you're breaking down slowly, that means the food's sitting in your body, and we don't want that. We want to break it down as fast as possible so we can obviously feel lighter, but also get that energy immediately. Protein, you can get some simple things like fish, seafood, because those aren't heavy. They don't weigh on you, say like a steak or even some people chicken. So seafood is a good pre-workout or pre-game fueling meal. And one good thing about fish too, it also has some healthy fats in there. So there you go, your healthy fat. And then of course some vegetables, like some other vegetables, like your rubbish, your greens, your colorful vegetables, some simple fruits like apples. You mentioned banana. Watermelon is really good because watermelon also has creatine, which helps the blood flow, which is important because if your blood's flowing, that means the muscle is flowing through your muscles, especially the lower part of your body muscles, so that you can move and be more agile faster.
And also diet change. Now, would the diet change on and off season?
Typically, it does depend on the person's goals. Like I said, you can do more fiber-rich foods when you're not competing because you can you can have more of a sustained fullness between your meals. But you still want to, and you can have things like steak more often, as long as it's not making you heavy or if it's not making you sluggish. But so it's really more of not necessarily on season, off season when it comes to the nutritional point. It's more about circulating around, like we just talked about, your pre-game fuel or your post-game fuel. But if a person is trying to put on a little more muscle or put a little more strength on, then yeah, they want to have more heavy laden foods like steak, chicken, liver, potatoes, black beans, brown rice. Those are things that's going to help to build, sustain more energy longer and build muscle.
I noticed on your website, teamfitnessmajor.com, that you do online programs.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, does that include all three aspects: the nutrition, injury prevention, and fitness?
So it's actually 4 components. I call it my 4 pillars for success. It's like 4. I equate it to 4 legs on a table. So you think of nutrition, proper meal placements and management, grow, exercise selection and progression to make you bigger, stronger, faster, whatever your goals are. Sleep, creating and building quality sleep habits, because if you don't have enough sleep, you don't have enough energy. So not enough sleep is going to create less energy. It's going to create less output when you go to the gym. And it also can trigger them some unhealthy eating habits. Because I still haven't met a person that said, I woke up at 1 a.m. I couldn't sleep, and now so I went in my refrigerator and I just grabbed some broccoli, or I just grabbed some carrots. That's usually not the choice that you're selecting so now you're creating some late night unhealthy eating habits, which again is going to help you make you be more sluggish whenever you do get sleep and wake up. And also stress management. If you are stressed, if you're under a lot of anxiety, that can affect your overall performance. It creates some unhealthy eating habits. You want to find comfort foods. You're not going to be as focused in the gym or when you're training or even in the game. It's also going to lift up your cortisol levels, which cortisol is one of the main killers of fat. So as far as fat loss, so you're going to tend to carry more weight when you're always high stress. And your muscle. So stress is like exercise. When you are exercising, when you're doing resistance training, when you're lifting weights, you're creating stress in the body. And how you create stress in the body? By you're constantly contracting and squeezing your muscles. So it doesn't matter. That's a good form of stress, yes, but it's still a stress. So that's why it's so important to have flexibility and mobility training with that. Well, same thing if you're just stressing over in general, your body just is naturally tight. So a tight muscle is a weak muscle because it can't do all the things that it needs to do, especially in something like, say, soccer. You can't move like you need to move. You can't move as quickly as you need to move. So all 4 of those are vital to you being able to be overall healthy and functional.
So if they wanted to check out your online program, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, there's a couple ways. You can go on Team Fitness Major. That's the main way. You can you can actually set up a consultation with me through there. I do take on free consultations. It's no charge. You would just go in there and you would click on contact us, and then you can book an appointment for a free consultation. Actually, I do one-on-one online coaching and also have fitness challenges. I have a fitness challenge. It's a 4-week fat blast challenge. It's full body, 3 days a week training with resistance wise. That starts this coming May 4th.
Perfect. Hey, Vince, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. You've always been helpful, and anytime I needed you, you were always there, and I really appreciate you coming on.
It's always awesome to talk with you for sure. So we always have good conversations, and the people I've met in the past, obviously not this group yet, but the people I've met in the past have always been fun, and they are very responsive to the feedback I give. So it's always much appreciated.
Great. Thank you, Vince, so much.
Thank you.
Again, a big thank you to Vince Singletary, the fitness major, for coming on the show to discuss fitness, injury prevention, and nutrition. Be sure to check out his website at teamfitnessmajor.com and ask about his online program and get a free consultation. You can also follow him on Instagram at Team Fitness Major. I would like to remind you to check out WPSL Pro at WPSLPro.com to get all the updates for the upcoming 2027 season. I'd also like to make note that WPSL Pro wasn't able to answer my questions at this time due to the 2027 start date being so far away until they confirm with the founding teams of those important decisions. I spoke with Georgia Impact, and they informed me that they will be joining WPSL Pro in 2028. Until next time, stay strong, remain resilient, and own that field.